Hi, welcome to the next installment of App Developer Conversations. I'm Ian Stefferman, CEO of Mobile Dev HQ. I'm here with Roby Ganguly of AppTenant and Ryan Morell of PlacePlay. Welcome, guys.
Hey, sorry for the interruption.
So today we're going to be talking. We've talked a little bit about iPhone 5 already. Let's talk a little bit about diving in directly into iOS 6 and into iTunes. We've heard some announcements there. One of the biggest announcements around the App Store was that they are actually getting rid of the Categories tab on the home screen of the App Store and replacing it completely with a Genius. So it'll be card flipping for app recommendations. What do you guys think this does? What do you think that does from an engagement perspective and to the actual App Store? Does it make it easier to use the App Store for users? Do you think that it helps? Is it a good thing for users or a bad thing for users?
You know, my initial take is it seems to be counterintuitive to how I would think about it. A, because I've been trained to navigate in a certain way with the categories, and B, because there's a certain aspect of task orientation that I would bring to the App Store, and I'm like, oh, I want to go find this thing, I'm looking for this kind of thing, and I'm not sure that I've ever seen the Genius in iTunes work well enough to make me feel confident about the Genius in iTunes App Store.
Yeah, I think it's, well, if it leads to more app downloads and it leads to consumers finding more apps they really like, then I think that's a good thing.
Yep.
So my challenge, and I've noticed that as my own usage over time has gone down, right? And part of it is simply because it's so hard to find what you want. And when I go into the App Store, I don't know that I want a puzzle game. I don't know that I want an arcade game. I just don't know. I want someone to tell me. And this kind of the Apple thesis, right? Is we're going to tell you what you want, and that's going to drive more usage and content, and that seems to be the path they're going down. I think it's interesting for app developers, and okay, well, now do the rankings matter as much? And how do we game the Genius system, right? But I think it can be a good thing for consumers.
Yeah, and so from my perspective, it feels like a little bit of a natural evolution, which is that once the app ecosystem reaches so many apps that categories really doesn't fit the bill anymore, you have to naturally push towards search. And the way to push towards search is that you degrade browse, right? And so they're essentially doing. This is a really interesting story. So Amazon has a very similar gateway page, right? The homepage of Amazon is essentially search box, recommendations, right? And recommendations obviously power a huge percentage of Amazon sales. But what's really interesting is there was a story that I heard once that Amazon's entire gateway went down, but the site was still up. It just showed the header, which included a search box, and the footer. And that was the whole page, right? And it went down for 45 minutes to an hour, right? Apparently it did not cause a substantial drop in orders because everybody just continued to search. And so really interesting to see how now if you sort of think about where if people are going to the App Store, they're likely to be searching more, but maybe every once in a while they'll just go and be like, oh, hey, this is a really cool app, and sort of incremental sale based on Genius, but the primary motivation could be to search, right? I think that's really interesting.
And it's especially interesting for you.
I love it. I'm all about it.
And I guess this is totally anecdotal, but when I think about my App Store engagement, it is becoming more and more search-based because you start to use apps for more tactical things. Like, I needed a scanner the other day. It's like, scan app. There it is. Fantastic. Go use that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and it feels like maybe we're hitting 1996-ish on the web, where Yahoo categories is sort of overflowed now. Now we need a real search. And that sort of drives home the point of Apple's acquisition of Chom, and how that sort of will affect this. It feels like, again, they might be pushing towards search. Roby, would be interesting to hear about your thoughts on do you guys see, or do you have any intuition around what channels lead to the most engaged users?
A little bit. So I think that the word of mouth is a big deal. And I think as you were talking about search and going to the app store with something you want to look for, what I was thinking about a lot is I'm searching more too, and that search is almost always driven by somebody tells me about an app I should go check out. So then I go and I not necessarily like you, I'm looking for, I need a scanner, but I'm like looking for a very specific app that somebody told me to search for, and so that's why I'm finding myself doing a search more often. But the people who are coming through word of mouth, we hear this quite a bit from developers who actually have great word of mouth, are much more tolerant. They're able to get into an app, and instead of spending 15 seconds deciding whether or not they like it, they're there for a while. They'll give it several shots. Their friend has said, so many good things that they're like, okay, well, this is going to make it into my life for at least a little bit. And so that's a big part of this. I don't know. When you think about search, what's driving search activity?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a set of branded search is big, right? So people telling you a name and just searching for the exact name, and then there's the set of sort of generic keyword-based search, scanner, etc. And we think, and what we're seeing is that generic search is rising right now, and so we expect that leads to a situation where more sophisticated search will matter in the App Store.
Yeah. So one thing that I was thinking about, and probably Roby can answer this a little bit, is how does the Facebook integration into the OS and the subsequent friend recommendations based on app usage affect that, right? Because word of mouth is important, but I mean, I've never recommended an app to either of you guys. I see all the time, so it doesn't happen all that often. But
Wait, you didn't like the scanner app that you got?
no, I did, but you didn't recommend it to me.
Yeah, so I think that the Facebook stuff is good because it gives some people tools out of the box, and then there's an incentive. Right now, once Apple takes something and puts it on the OS, and it's their standard, they have an incentive to make that experience really good and make sure it's being used. We've seen them more than any other company be really good at saying, not getting used, not important, it's going to get cut. And so the fact that they've invested this much behind it, I believe that they're going to be putting more emphasis on making it work for developers and making it work for consumers. And that's, I think, what's really exciting is that driving to a place where there's more of a deep understanding in the ecosystem of how people are sharing and engaging with apps together it's really valuable. And the input to that is your app has to be good enough, right? So the thing we always care about is that you as an app developer have this relationship with your customer, that you're trying to make your app better, that you try to connect with that person. Well, our developers who are connecting with these consumers are much more likely to have their apps be shared because they've actually gotten this relationship with somebody that cares enough. So in this world, I would say what's really super exciting is that it's even better to earn a customer's love, right? Then they're going to talk about you, and it's really easy now because iOS6 makes it so.
Yeah.
Super interesting.
One other thing, and this is maybe it's off topic, maybe it's not. But one thing we're clearly seeing is this cross-device. What's the right word here? iPad App Store is now iOS App Store. iPhone App Store is going to look like iPad, which is also kind of starting to look like Apple TV, which now the new iTunes is all starting to look like. So you're going to move from content acquisition channel to content acquisition channel and have a very similar experience, which I think is really interesting.
It's super interesting. I think the move to iOSify Mac is really interesting in general, and this seems like just another step in that direction. Unify all those platforms. I'm looking forward to that day, both in disdain that I do not want to see it happen. I would like Mac to stay away from iOS. Like, I think that there are certain things that a desktop OS provides that are good. I don't need I don't need sandboxes across all of my different apps on my desktop, but on my phone it actually makes a little bit of sense, right? And obviously Apple's play is let's sandbox everything. If you don't want to live in the sandbox, I think that the long-term play is play in iCloud, right?
Yeah.
So that's another whole nother bag.
Whole nother, yeah.
Yeah. So. All right, well, thanks guys so much. Keep watching for the last installment this week, and come back next week.
Now you have more communication area.
Yeah.
You have more space to potentially have like menu icons that people can use to ask questions, talk to you. I think that every app developer we've ever talked to is always challenged.